Hello, this is Billy Goat. Welcome to another Doomed Discussions. I'm with James CL from the Austin band Monte Luna. Welcome back. How are you doing, brother?
Hey, man, it has been some time since we talked.
It
I'm
has.
doing well. We're South by has been a couple weeks now, but we are still in that recovery mode from that event. And I think it was like, I believe last time we talked, we had a little different attitude about everything. And now this is at least in Austin post South by, and we're all still kind of exhausted from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that myself included, a lot of us are definitely hurting on the mental health thing, and we did see like a little bit of resurgence on COVID. So, last time we spoke, we are like, we're invincible, but the
It felt
reality of
that
it,
way.
it really did, man. It was like that. It was that magic bubble. We had
Yeah,
just gotten back from tour, and we're like, nothing can stop us now. And then some real heavy events came through Austin, at least, and
right.
another surge of the virus, and people got sick, and I think it's just weighing on us now at this point of the pandemic of where the hell are we? And like,
Mm-hmm.
it's been a wild ride. What a long, strange trip it's been, to quote the Grateful
Yeah.
Dead.
Yeah. After both times I got COVID, because I got COVID right after our last
Right.
show, to teach me to be arrogant
Damn
about
it,
it.
universe.
Yeah. But it was just like, this is just a cold, no problem. And there was pretty mild cold symptoms. There was
Yeah.
mild loss of smell, like compared to Delta, Omicron was weaker. But there were the same sort of neurological symptoms that followed that period of cold symptoms. Um, and that affected my nerves. My nerves started to flare up really bad. It got so bad, so loud, so to speak, that I couldn't focus on anything. And all I could do is just like sit in a chair and watch passively YouTube videos or read a book or something to try to like get my mind off of it. But I couldn't get work done. And it swallowed like the whole month of February. And and then of course depression compounds it because you feel trapped in your situation. You don't know what's wrong with you. There's all these symptoms of long COVID. It's very confusing because it triggers a lot of different symptoms that we relate to other kinds of illnesses. So you're wondering, like, do I have Parkinson's? Am I just losing my mind? One thing I knew for sure is that it wasn't psychosomatic. Like, these are real physical symptoms that were fueling psychological problems as well. And so I don't want anybody to, in all of our political discussions, we have vested interest in holding to our opinion, but don't let that get in the way of good sense. Like, respect that this is a virus we still don't know a lot about, and it doesn't just leave the body when the cold symptoms go away. It goes into other parts of the body, and it can be chased around. And some people may not have that experience as much in their face as I did, but the more I did a deep dive into, what I could understand of the published, medical journal articles on long COVID and the effects that it has neurologically, the more I began to really respect this is a virus that doesn't play by our rules and expectations.
Yeah, I agree. I am very fortunate, Billy. I say that because I have yet to experience COVID, and it has been around me. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, at this point, especially, and I probably said it last time we spoke, but like, I'm just shocked. I'm shocked I don't have it. I'm shocked I never got it. I don't really know what to do. I certainly, especially since we last talked, and since a lot of my friends and peers have started to get it once again, it's just been like back in the forefront of my mind, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
being a little more cautious when I'm going out again, because I mean, honestly, at this point, I haven't gotten my booster, so it's on my radar for like cautious. And I
Right.
really want to get back into it, and I got to go to the VA and get it. But
Well, I would say this, like, I've survived at least 2, maybe 3 bouts of COVID. I might have had the alpha variant back in February of 2020 because I had that's when I had like the classic symptoms, the loss of breath,
Right.
cold symptoms as well. And, and it carried on and on and on. And then I started feeling better. I got my shot. I got my confidence, went down to Texas. I got Delta. Um,
Right.
and we can all debate about the reasons why people get sick. Honestly, we don't know as much as we think we know.
I
And
agree.
it's the tragedy is the situation has become so political. We've all become little doctors, and we're assessing each other and saying, well, if you would just do this more or that more, so there are some things that need to be shared, like get out and get sunshine more, because strong vitamin D levels just over and over again are correlated with better immune health. So
Yeah.
even if you get it, you might get over it with a better constitution than somebody else who just spends all their time hiding indoors. And I was at a gathering on Sunday with some older people that I hadn't seen in a long time. People my mom and dad's age, and it was amazing. Just the year or two had taken its toll. You could just see in everybody's faces. Everybody was super pale. Everybody was super drained. Some of them had gotten sick and recovered. So there's that. But others, like, it's just, we're removing ourselves more and more from nature. And I think that's part of the problem here is when we started telling our minds that we were fighting an invisible enemy and that we had to shield ourselves through all this protective gear and Lysol and, basically to sanitize life. We really missed a bigger picture about the human biome and how it works and how much it hurts us to be separated from sunlight and fresh air and social interaction. And it was easy to lose your way, especially in that first year. But the second year, we were all kind of tired of it and it was just whatever. Third year, like once that New Year's came around, man, I was ready. I was hearing rumors, the pandemic is coming to a close,
Yeah.
Omicron's not as severe. I was ready. And so like, I wasn't allowing any room for the possibility that I could get sick again. And I got a little overconfident again, but such as being human.
Agreed, man. It's something that I feel like, I think we all kind of thought it was the end. It was almost like, I think we talked about it last time, like the end of Star Wars, where everyone's kind of celebrating, but that the Empire is looming somewhere in the vast corners of the galaxy. You really can't stomp them out, or the Sith, much like the COVID. It's a virus. It's a mutating virus. Any sort of virus like this has been prevalent in our society, and we've had to deal with it. I mean, a lot of people that I know right now are getting some nasty flu. They've tested negative for COVID. They're just getting straight up flu. And going back to what you were saying about nature, I totally agree, dude. It's like you have to get out in the sun. You have to be in touch with the water and feel and breathe fresh air and all these things. You're right, man. We became such a sterile
right.
point
And then
in time.
everything became virtual and electronic. That's why I don't buy into this metaverse shit, because that's taking us even more away from reality. And we might be communicating with each other in a sense, learning more in a sense, but is it natural for us to sit in front of a screen, or worse, have goggles over our eyes, experiencing something? I guess, if everything's taken in moderation, that's really the key to a healthy, happy human life. But we just don't tend to run that way, especially when there's economic incentives involved. We'll spend more of our time engaged in activity, or we're getting at some other reward from it. So, I can't tell other people what to do, and I would never dream of that. But, if you are suffering from depression born out of illness or just in general, don't underestimate the power of sunlight. Nothing affects change immediately. It all is cumulative. So you have to be patient with the process. But I guess the most important message I can send is, start that process. Like, make yourself go on a short walk, and then the next day make it a little bit longer, and, sweeten the deal, bring some music with you. What I had to do is I had to ask my network, is there anybody who wants to do like a walk and talk with me? And made good friends with the front woman for Old Blood, who I'd known, of course, but we just had never really talked before. And her and I have gotten to know each other really well, and we've continued those walks. And it's almost been a year since I started that. And then I found myself wanting to walk more on my own. And then one day became 2, and then 3. And then at my peak, I was doing 5 days a week. But then I got COVID and it all derailed again. And I felt like, how am I going to get out of this? How am I going to slog through this morass of depression and anxiety and self-doubt and just fatalism? And it started with sitting out in the sun. Like, when you're not feeling good about anything, your body can at least connect with sunlight. And that actually made me want to check my messages, made me want to look at my email. I felt good, and it only lasted for a short while, but you can see I'm starting to get color in my face, and that's rare for Oregon, but it's because I've been, every chance there's a cloud break, I'm out there sitting in it, walking in it, something. And it's not just the vitamin D, it's actually the ultraviolet light is what the studies are showing, that actually you need some amount of ultraviolet light. We can't just live in our caves 24/7. And it's even worse when we have an all night lifestyle and sleep during the day, because we're getting less of what our body needs to power up. And I keep coming back to this notion of mental health. We've misnamed it mental health. It's really brain and body health. It's organic health, because what we do to our bodies affects our brains, and our brains house our minds. So when you talk about mental health, you're really talking about a real brain issue, where your brain is sick, and it's a muscle just like any other. It can get tired, it can get bruised, it can have all kinds of problems, and we've created a real stigma around it, almost. To have a mental health issue means there's something permanently and incurably wrong with you, and it may just simply be viewed as a brain injury that needs to be treated from that angle. And so how do you treat those things? Well, your body is a big chemical factory. So you treat it through good nutrition, you treat it through exercise, you treat it through fresh air, deep breathing, you treat it through stress management techniques, you treat it through healthy social interactions, water, all those things that, my generation kind of scoffed at because, it was all about nihilism. It was all about, ruining your health and, pushing yourself to the limits. And that's fine when you're in your 20s, but once you hit a certain point, your body's just like, I can't do this anymore. And it starts to stick.
I know, man. I feel that it's been again with South by, I was working doubles, and if I wasn't playing shows with Monte Luna or Abject Terror, I was working in a bar from like 11 o'clock in the morning until 4. Very little sunlight, very little breaks, tons of music, and then tons of social interaction, and coupled with just life, and the depressions and the things that we think about. And it was just exhausting. And I remember last week, I came out of South by completely drained and feeling like I was at a breaking point with my mental health. Because you can't, you can't really put a fucking dollar on your own sanity. And in a lot of ways, South by causes you to do that, because you're like, well, I guess I'll work an insane amount of hours in the dark all day, dealing with people that may or may not be kind to you, or may not even care about your existence.
Right.
You're just a service to them, because you get the dregs, man. You get the dregs of society. And a lot of times, when you have unofficial South by showcases and people are like, well, I didn't want to buy the badges, I'm just here in Austin to be trash. And and of course there's the other side of it, but your depression mind, it really sinks into those moments where you're like, wow, I had an awful experience today, and like, what did I do? I made a good chunk of money, but is it all worth it? And like, I listened to some great music, some terrible music, and then that sinks into your mind about like, oh my goodness, what am I doing, and what are these bands doing? And then it just, yeah, depression compounds and grows within these dark areas of our mind. And without sunlight and without being able to breathe clean air and connect to the ocean and the water, it's hard, man, to keep your mental health up,
Yeah.
because you're just exhausting everything that you have, and you're living in artificial light for so long. And around, I stopped smoking cigarettes, even though it doesn't sound like it right now, but it just being around cigarette smoke too all the time, man, it's
Hmm.
exhausting on my mental health, like, because I don't think I'll ever not want a cigarette,
Right.
that being addiction and nicotine. But I don't really want it. I don't like being around it. And it just is the way it is in the service industry, where all of your coworkers smoke, and
Hmm.
counting the money at the end of the night, and everyone's smoking and just relaxing. And, you're trying to play dice and have a good time and get away from all the stressors of just being a bartender in Austin or anywhere really.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't really, help, man. All these little things don't really help you, and they think that you kind of close your eyes to it. But like the week after, I had finally gotten some time, and I went with a bunch of friends up to the Commons Ford area, which is like a kind of a chiller boat launch park, and just getting that one day of sunlight and having a nice afternoon eating barbecue in the hill country. Like, it made me desire so badly to be back into nature and to be
Hmm.
away from all of this. And I think I've struggled with that my whole life, but it's definitely becoming more prevalent, because I see, like, I feel it, man. Like, as you were saying, you can't party or be as not much of a nihilist in your 30s or 40s now, because I'm 33,
No.
and all my coworkers, a lot of them being similar age but younger, definitely don't give a shit, man. And like, I mean, I can't, my body physically can't fucking party with these people every night. I'm
Yeah.
much more of a stoner. I could smoke weed all day. I could eat mushrooms, but like, I'm not trying to fucking just blast lines or just party and drink. It's exhausting. And you put that on top of like working in a bar and never getting sunlight and mental health, and people wonder why, it's just like bartenders are just exhausted all the time and grumpy. And I don't think it has to be like that, because I don't like stereotypes of anyone. Um, and I know that a lot of people should and take those opportunities, because you do work late, because you do get some odd days off to go back to nature, and enjoy the sunlight while you can, because you'll be ultimately much happier than, I mean, even if you are partying every night, just go lay in the sun for an hour, let your body heal itself, even though you're destroying it.
Yeah.
It's just
It's
it's
huge.
a vicious cycle, man. And especially in the service industry, where your mental health is always being taxed for how much you want to make and how much you want to interact.
Hmm.
Because I personally know that for myself, I have like a social limit. Like, I went to see Fuzz last night, which was really cool. I've
Oh,
never
cool.
seen type. Yeah, it was excellent. My drummer Danny works at the Mohawk, and there's such a great family over there, man. And I was thankful enough to get in to see Fuzz. And I didn't talk to anyone. I mean, I saw some of my friends, but I just kind of wandered away from everyone and watched the show, and then left and did my own thing. I'm just still also feeling a lot of social drain
Yeah.
from South by, and then, from depression. This is April is always a very hard month for my mental health,
Hmm.
for a lot of reasons. In the past, this was also like around the time that my ex-wife passed away,
Hmm.
and it's just always physically exhausting in these spring months. And I do know that I have limits being a musician and having to act on stage. Like, it's just exhausting. We have a show Sunday at one of the bars that I work at, Hole in the Wall, which has been around since like 1974. It's this ancient establishment, and it's amazing. And we're doing like an Unholy Sunday And I know that there's just going to be a lot of social interaction there. And it's already like this week, I'm like, I need to take a break from this before I hit a point where I'm feeling way too exhausted to just be kind. And I think that's, again, not wanting to fall into a bartender trope. I don't want to be an awful person in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a society-wide movement to really change some of these things that are work related, for example. And I don't think everything has to be done through legislation either. I think the workers can just say, hey, I need 15 minutes of sunlight if I'm going to
Yeah.
have, you need more than that, but at least, you can start by bargaining, 15 minutes of sunlight. And sure, of course, you can take your approved breaks, but how many people work through their breaks? I mean, I used to work through my
Oh,
breaks, my
totally.
lunch, everything. I used to work like 80-hour days indoors, and I'd get all kinds of things done. But in the end, like, what do you really get for you get paid? But what do you get when you go beyond what you're supposed to do? When you don't take your breaks, when you don't take your lunch, what are you really getting from that? And I don't think it's as much as you might think in that moment,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah, it's draining. It's just draining on your mental health, and mental health is already draining itself.
mhm.
It's very
Yeah. So
difficult.
let's talk mental health for a second, because I really think it's a poorly named thing, because and it goes back to our conception of ourselves as human beings, that we are somehow different than nature, or that we are of nature, but we are a higher class of being than the rest of the world. And that may be true on some tests of intelligence, but then that really begs the question of, well, it depends on who values that intelligence, and how,
Correct.
and your intelligence may not get you through the same day as a gorilla goes through, or a sparrow, right? They have their own kinds of intelligence that are very unique and special. So I think we have to stop thinking of ourselves as such radically different beings that don't need the things that other living beings need on planet Earth. And once we start realizing how much time we spend in front of the screen, how much time we spend escaping indoors, how much time we spend eating junk, not drinking water, not getting sunlight or exercise, it will affect your mental health. And the mental health, again, is just brain health. Depression does real things to your brain. There's actual brain shrinkage that happens. Other times it can cause inflammation, and that can lead to all kinds of shit. And so even though you may feel like in February, like, I got COVID, a bunch of bad things happened surrounding that, but I had a positive mental attitude about it, because I'd had 3 months of just nonstop energy and positivity. And I was like, when is this going to stop? This is great, And then I hit that wall, and the depression returned, and it took out the whole month of February. And that was despite the fact I was trying to think my way out of it. And I had gone through all this cognitive behavioral training, and I knew, how to negate negative self-talk with, positive truths about my reality. But it was not enough. There were actual things happening physically too. There was injury to my brain. And so rest and sleep was a big part of that. And that's our first instinct when we're depressed. But it can also become an escape if you just do it too much. And you have to force your body to get back into the pattern of getting well again. So what kind of pattern do you want to live in your daily life? What do you want your day-to-day to actually look like? You have to have the courage to think about that, and then to write down all the elements that are involved in that. What time do you go to bed? What time do you wake up? Don't be rigid with yourself, but get an idea of what a good pattern looks like in your life. And then when you're depressed and everything goes to the wayside, start thinking about your game plan for getting back in your pattern again. Like me, it was getting back to my walks, getting back outdoors, getting back to good eating, getting back to where I wanted to check my email again and talk to people in real life. And it started with me sitting out in the sunshine. And we don't get much of it in the months of February and March here in Oregon. It's rain or shine sometimes,
Yeah.
but If I saw that cloud break, I'd get right out there in my chair, get like 15 minutes of bona fide vitamin D. I burn easily, so I choosing the morning sunshine and just kind of acclimatizing myself. And gradually, I'm starting to get brown again. That's great. Because I used to live in Texas, and I remember what it was like to have a good tan. But that's another thing. Like, I just might have to move from Oregon because there is a definite seasonal thing happening here. There's a cyclical thing to my overall depression that is exacerbated by things like illness and, human drama and financial stress and things like that. And so, like, if you see a pattern and there's certain times of the year you're going to be more vulnerable, part of there's an acceptance there too. You're not necessarily going to be able to stop your body always from being depressed. You're going to feel, even if you feel like your vision is on one track, your brain is complex, and it represents your other organs too. And if the rest of your body is feeling it, the wear and tear of not getting the nutrition it needs and the sunlight and the good activity, then you're going to feel depressed, even though you don't want to feel depressed, even though you have things in life to stimulate you. And it's going to be very distressing and confusing. And you're going to look for something to make you feel good immediately. And that's when people, unfortunately, get into another vicious cycle, which is drugs and alcohol that are actually bad for you. Even some pharmaceuticals that are prescribed, like benzodiazepines, can be really bad for you, especially if you build a tolerance to it or try to quit. The side effects of those things are so vicious. I've been through it with sleeping medicine. I gave up a lot of medicines after I got better from COVID. I started getting on this health kick, saw my doctor, and he's like, you don't need to be on this medicine, this medicine, this medicine. I was like, fine, quitting them all. And I got a little overzealous with it because I went down on my mental health meds too. And I've come to respect, like, for those of us who do need medication, and it's not everybody who's depressed by any means, there's probably an over reliance on those things. But when you have these actual things happening in your brain, I encourage you guys to just Google, what does depression do to your brain? You find out these facts because it's quite startling. And when I discovered, okay, it affects the prefrontal cortex, which is your decision-making abilities, and you have an increase of cortisol in your brain, which inhibits new neuron growth in that area. No wonder it feels painful to make decisions. No wonder everything feels like a burden. Even though you may not want it to be that way, you're going to physically feel that way because there's a real thing going on in your brain. What I've been told by my doctors over and over again is to affect that flooding of cortisol, walking is the best thing. And I started getting back to my walking, and I didn't feel like it at all. It felt like misery, because remember, your executive functions are flooded. They're taxed. They're tired. The other thing that is affected is the thalamus, which is responsible for the regulation of fear and alert, fight or flight. It becomes inflamed. So you have a shrinking of one part of the brain, and you have an inflammation of another part of the brain. Remember, brain's just a muscle. It grows, it flexes, it shrinks, etc. Then you're having real physical symptoms that are associated with that. The biggest thing I had to get over was the guilt I felt being depressed, because that's not my ideal me. That is a me that's a state I don't like to be in. It's a mind state, a brain state I don't like to be in. And yet it happens, and it's going to happen on certain cycles. And I can try to prepare for that. I can try to, I've had one winter where I didn't get depressed, and a lot of that was I was exercising regularly. There were things that were happening to counterbalance. Remember, your body's a chemical machine. Stop thinking of yourself. Even if you think of yourself as an eternal spirit, you're still trapped right now in a meat prison, as one of my friends calls it. And as long as you're in this meat prison, you are going to be subject to all the chemical things that affect it. So everything you do to your body is going to have real world consequences. And you want to remember that. So, accept who you are. You're a chemical being. And now how do you alter your body chemistry when it needs to be, or how you maintain your body chemistry is probably a better goal. Maintain good body chemistry.
Yeah, that's a really difficult thing to do. Again, yeah, considering all the things we put in our body, from from sugars to heavy drugs, which I honestly do consider sugar a very heavy drug.
Yeah.
But vitamins, everything, it all affects it. And then how your body processes it, how you're using that energy, and the things that you're eating, whether it's stagnating or you're depositing in fat. It's all happening, and it's all either wearing you out, or you're kind of feeling content with it, or it's all just a feel good void. I think there's a lot of void filling in our society, where we just, because of whether it be depression or just pure boredom,
Yeah.
people want to feel something at
Well,
all points of time.
well, imagine like what our lives would have been like, I don't know, 100,000 years ago, when we were all kind of in tribes, and there was a tribal community, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got a lot of things like solved within that context, because you always had people who had been through it before, who kind of knew these life cycles, who knew the right herbs to give you all those things. And now we're on these islands, we're all kind of in this society commodities, and we're all just producing machines. So we don't have time for real serious in-depth interactions with people. People become a nuisance, a burden. We don't even want to talk to people when we call our bank. We want to talk to a machine. Not everybody does, but I'd say the majority of my generation and yours probably likes the fact we can shortcut real human interaction, because it's painful, it's annoying, it's inconvenient. We're on the go, we are producing machines, and we've got to think of ourselves differently, or we will burn out just like producing machines.
It's true, man. And it does. Honestly, as someone who, I have a love-hate with human connection, but I do love talking on the phone with people. And I don't know if it was just the blip in time where my generation was like, we got cell phones and are seen like 18 years old, and it was like mind blowing. They were like those brick, you could like throw it against the wall. But like calling people, it's always felt natural. Even before that, you would call your friends on like a landline, and you had all your numbers on the fridge. And like, I don't know, I grew up talking to my friends on the phone, and now it's like I would be pulling teeth to get like more than maybe probably my closest friends, but like just coworkers, casual friends. Now it's like I would love to have a conversation with them on the phone. And I think that in a lot of ways, it's much more appropriate than having to text, or because I don't want to have a back and forth conversation forever. I just want to say something and be done with it. Now it's all drawn out, and then it's like, I don't know. It's a weird texting and all that. Also, I think texting personally sometimes gives me an anxiety that I never thought I'd want. And I'd much rather have a conversation with somebody in person. But it's like fucking pulling teeth with my friends in this generation to like have that moment, because sometimes all you want to say is this one thing. You don't want it to be misconstrued. You want it to be in your tone. You want it to just be done. Right. And then you're texting back and forth over like a period of 4 days, and it's like, do I want to think about this for that long? Like, if it doesn't really, like, even positive or negative, it's like, what do we do? We're just drawing out these conversations. It's like with this like form of email that is even more informal than email, because email on the books should be formal, but most of the time when we send emails, we're like, hey, thanks, here's my poorly attached image, or like, here's this article, or I'm sending you a draft of this and that.
Well, we have more, especially if you're in a band or have a blog or a podcast. You're probably on all the socials. You have more things to check. There's more opportunities to message you there. You have more to get drowned in, get lost in. Just taking a week or two break from my email was unthinkable, but I couldn't bring myself to check it in February when I was feeling so bad. Everything hurt except sitting still and almost being catatonic. And yeah, you can kind of fight through those moments, and yeah, you can summon the will to do it, but you're still going to hurt. This is a real brain thing going on here. But I don't think we really help our situations when we have so much social interaction with so many people virtually. That's it comes from so many different directions. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Like, how many people do we have in our phone directory that we've never really even met, but it just kind of got added by a social media app? And hopefully you're better at that than I am. But I've got all kinds of numbers in my phone, and some of these people, I'm like, who are they?
Oh yeah, and I'm always kicking myself for like some of the names that I put in, because I'm definitely one of those people where I'm like, okay, first name, place that I met them, or business, or something weird about them. Like I just sometimes, yeah, and I mean, you meet people and then you're talking, and you're like, yeah, let me get your number, and then that moment in time passes, but you still have that connection. And you look through your phone, it's like a graveyard of people that you've never even talked to in years, and then you have like a, well, I mean, at least in my phone, it's like 1/3 of my phone I definitely frequently talk to, and then the rest of it is just
Yeah,
all garbage. All
that's the
garbage.
same with most social media. Like, I have 5,000 friends on Facebook, and I
Oh,
regularly
yeah.
interact with less than 30.
Yeah. Oh, social media. Yeah. Again, yeah, that is. I think that has to do a lot with it, with mental health too. For
Mm-hmm.
is just that with the social media, texting all day. Again, it's like it would be nice to separate those things in a
Yeah.
lot of our lives. If you do podcasts or own a business, it's like we read fucking messages all day. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I so appreciate a phone call or like an interview or something like that, where we can sit here and not have to go back and forth. And then, it's just happening in the moment. We're not like being perfect about the things that we're trying to present.
Mm-hmm.
It's the authenticity is there.
Yeah.
And it's something that we lose as we push further and further into this, which I do believe is like that metaverse life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
I don't think it's bringing us to good places. I mean, at a certain point, we have to get over this idea that our way of life is sacred. We inherited our way of life. We didn't choose this way of
yeah,
life. And most of us are still trying to come to grips with the pace of society and the demands that are placed upon us, socially, materially, environmentally, et cetera. And we spend our whole life fighting the plagues of the side effects of this fast-paced, production-oriented world. And it's not a statement of capitalism or communism. It's just a statement of like, look at your reality. Like,
yeah,
how much stress is in your life and from how many different sources. You might think of one or two big stressors, but when you think of all the stressors, from traffic to loud noises to things breaking down, to bills, to price increases, to social media especially, and you'll find probably like most of our drama comes from social media. uh,
yeah,
if we cut that out, it would cut out a significant period of time that we could use to recoup, relax, um, do something for ourselves. And social media feels like it's fulfilling in a way, and it feels like it's giving us something, but it's really taking more from us. Um, so I'm having second thoughts on social media. Like, I'm still using it for Doomed and Stoned. And I still appreciate all the people I've met through social media. Um, but we have to say, okay, because something worked in the past doesn't mean it's still working now. And um, what kind of world have we created for ourselves? It's kind of like an online 1984, where we know each other's deepest secrets and we police each other's behaviors. And I think it's just a bad place to be as a human being, to live in that world.
yeah. No, you're right. I do agree that the policing of behaviors thing is very odd. And of course, I mean, sometimes it works out for the best. I mean, sometimes you find out that somebody is a real big piece of shit.
Yeah.
And, but it is also a double-edged sword, because you get all this poison every day and you're finding out these horrible things about people that may or may not be directly in your life.
Right.
Sometimes you see shit about someone in some other state or in some other band or whatever, and you're just like, damn. I mean, I get it. It's good that we were fucking calling these people out for whatever reason, but also
we also need to look at like the cultural
like,
causes of these things too, like looking at it in isolation and saying this person is a bad human being. It may be true. Let's look also at their upbringing. Let's look at, the things that are freely available to people that fuck them up, that put them in chains, that
totally.
that get them on the wrong path financially. Let's also fix some of these big things, and then let's try to compassionately confront people who are being flagrant pieces of shit. But I mean, at a certain point, the crowd can't handle that. Like, the crowd can't change a person. All the crowd can do is condemn, but the crowd can't help a person. And I stay away from internet mobs. Like, one, it's more stress than I need. I don't need to be involved in. There's no moral obligation for me to be tracking down people and figuring things out about them and exposing them. Like, I try to think about, how would I live my life if I didn't have this whole social media thing here? Like, is it necessary for my life? And it's not. So, all right, so what should my life look like? And what would my life look like if I wasn't feuding with this person or that person? What kind of life would I live? Well, I'd probably be gardening. I'd probably be, okay, let's do those things, and the less I stay out of people's business, or the more I stay out of people's business, rather, the happier I feel. I don't need to know I don't even watch the news. I don't even pay attention to the news anymore. Like, I'll check it once or twice a month and I'll figure, oh, I missed out on that. Oh, that person died. Oh, that sucks. This, that. But, I'm not going to be that first person to hop on social media and be the first to share it, because I'm just a tool of that system that profits off my clicks and my activity. If I'm going to be on there, it's going to profit me somehow. And if there's no tangible profit, then I'm off.
Yeah. That's reasonable, man. It is incredibly sad to see, these social media tools being used for such venomous behavior. And I think that it would be cool if we could all just be like, let's share gardening tips. But, just like with news, it's one of those things where, this being a news platform in some way, because I'm honestly, I fucking hate Facebook at this point. I have a hard time even checking it for the band.
Yeah, me too.
I feel bad in a lot of ways.
It pains me every time I have to go on there. And
same. Feels very...
yeah. And I was an early adopter, not super early, but 2008 is when I got on Facebook. So I've been on there for, a good chunk of years now, 14. I'm going on 14.
Yeah.
And it was an addictive, exciting place to be in the beginning.
Yes.
As is any new thing. But remember, as human beings, things affect us cumulatively. Nutrition affects us cumulatively. You're not going to feel better overnight. Exercise affects us cumulatively. You're not going to lose weight overnight.
Right.
Stress also affects us cumulatively, and technology affects us cumulatively. Everything does, little by little. And so we get used to that, and we assume this is the way life has to be. Some of us have to take a stand and say, this is not the way my life has to be. And in doing so, I don't want to change any other person. I hope they'll change, but I just want to take a stand that is right for me and my health at this point in my life, and put certain, make certain understandings, about how soon I can get back to somebody, how soon I can deliver a project, how soon I can answer an email, when I'm going to host a debut. I still do it 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If I can get it done earlier, yay. But that's when my mind is at its best and active, and I can't meet the 6 a.m. East Coast, premieres a lot of times.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, and that's a decision I had to make, regardless of how I thought other people were going to view it. And I didn't have to explain it either. It's just people can learn about the rationale later on, but that's just the way it is for me. The same with, when I started Stoner's Revenge Media, which is kind of a PR thing for writing EPKs and so forth. I wanted to put my gift of writing to work because that's one thing I enjoy doing, and I think I'm okay at it. And it started to sprawl into something more, and it was turning into like a full service PR, everything. And I was like, this caused me so much stress, and it was such an exciting thing in the beginning. So I had to really pull back some of those tentacles, because they do have a tendency to wander. You can have success without doing all the best practices, quote unquote, that you hear in a YouTube video or read in a how-to article.
Right.
There are ways you can grow community. There's ways you can grow your band. There's ways that you can circumvent social media, or use it smartly, use it nimbly, to great effect. In many ways, these services are using us, but they're also here to serve us. So they are concerned about how we use it. And if we all kind of show a pattern that is working best for our health, I think and hopefully the social media companies will get it, and they'll rearrange the algorithms. They'll make it back to where you can see the people you care about. You get notifications from the blogs that you're subscribed to. But I don't hold out a lot of hope or stock for that. I would love it to. I think everything's going to be moving to smaller, more localized communities. Internet will never go away. There will always be tentacles out there to reach other people, which is awesome. But I think, I hope, after all the stuff we went through and are going through right now with supply chain issues and food short. I mean, we're not at food shortages yet, but when I go to the store, like all of a sudden they're suddenly out of.
Oh, totally.
Something.
Yeah.
That's happening more and more. Food prices going up. More and more people are starting to think about local stuff. My brother lives out in Waco, and he's starting a farm, and his only vision is to sell food to the local people.
Right.
And I'm sure it's going to grow beyond that, but I like that vision. I like that vision when it comes to music communities too. I liked when it was just kind of a blogosphere, and you just kind of visited your favorite blogs, but it's a different world now, and who knows what it's going to look like in the future. But I think the future is going to be more nimble, localized communities, or more specialized, segmented communities that have their own, means of kind of connecting with each other, that bypasses Facebook and a lot of these things.
Right. That would be nice. I think that at least in Austin, we try to do a lot of things like that. I know even like app wise, they develop a lot of small town apps to help us in life, whether it be for parking or for dating or whatever, that are exclusive to just this area. It's
very cool.
It's definitely going to happen in small sects. I do think that the ever expanding internet will just continue to grow and amass its like internet army. But I think that societally and communally, we are going to want to push for smaller things so that we can actually make those connections.
Right.
And right. I do love, it's interesting, when they show these, like, I think it was a video for like the metaverse itself, and there's like people like talking, and they're wearing these headsets, and it's like this beautiful scene of people in a house, and then you see this shot of like somewhere completely across the globe, and those two families are connecting, or they're like sharing a project or a meeting or something like that. And I do see that to be something of a useful tool and to be really interesting. But I think that those communities, the smaller communities, will want something that they can latch on and then, share those moments and have those real connections that are much more tangible. Because I think that while the metaverse and all this, the internet, it allows us to get actual knowledge and maybe have real interactions, we still would like to desire something locally that we can put our hands on, that we can say, this is part of my community, and that I cherish this. because these experiences are on the track, I think, to becoming more and more of just a online interaction. And I think that if we continue to push in our communities that we want to be a part of it, that we can succeed in keeping things uh, with a little bit more of a sense of human interaction and human connection.
Yeah, that connection, and especially physically. Like maybe I'm old school, but I'm having a hard time with this distance work thing. Like I
Yeah,
trust the people I'm interacting with, we've got good ideas. I'm having a hard time not having them around me to kind of like, you know, work with.
sure.
We're all
Yeah,
doing projects and pieces of the same projects from a distance, and that's how it has to be. But it doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel like I'm going to be at my most creative. I feel like I'm going to be a lot more distractible. I'm going to be a lot more prone to put things off, out of sight,
right.
out of mind kind of thing. There's not going to be that mutual encouragement and even friendly competition going on. Whatever you want to call it, the rapport between human beings that helps them to kind of, you know, uh, be better. Iron sharpens iron. Um, I feel like when I worked in a more public facing job, my issue really was more work-life balance and taking more time for me. Now that I've been through the pandemic without that public facing job when I was laid off, um, and I started to do more online work. Now my focus is really on less social online interaction and more real life interaction. And I still got to find that time for me too. So it's not necessarily the best setup for everyone, unless you know how to put limits. Like if it works for you convenience wise and it helps you take care of your family and take care of other needs, or you just enjoy it for whatever reasons, that's great. Still, you got to watch out because it will burn you out. It will make your house a miserable place to be because it's associated with that project, that company, that boss. And you definitely don't want that. So the more you kind of from the outset as a new employee or whatever, kind of, even in the interview process, just ask those questions about work-life balance, ask about how schedules work, ask about what you have to do to be successful. And if it's looking like, okay, I'm going to be basically just a human, machine,
Mhm.
working as a cog in a wheel, and it's going to be like something out of Metropolis, then, you know, how much of this is actually right? How much of this is rewarding me? And we've got to start looking for other forms of work that don't rely on these apps and other things. It seems liberating, and it is for a lot of people, honestly. But I've also seen how entrapping it can be.
Mhm.
Again, it's not just that beginning experience. Is what does the routine look like, and how does your routine change, and how does being in your car all the time change you?
Right.
Only you can answer that, and I could get away with a lot more things as a younger person than I can get away now, as to your point earlier. So like it really matters right now. I'd rather live more frugally, have less money, have less spending power, but have stability and a routine that honors my mind and body than I would to go back to that hyper competitive rat race.
I totally agree, man. I couldn't agree more. It's that life burned me out, work, especially working in mental health for years, and then being in the Navy and just living that life for so long before I realized that the things that make me happy are working on farms and like building
Mhm.
farms and working with aquaponic systems and hydroponic systems, and then eventually wanting to do a more music fitting lifestyle and just kind of like getting myself in these little communities. Both of the bars that I work at, the Lost Well, which is like the staple, like are basically our home front for heavy metal and wonderful people. And I was fortunate enough to get a job there this past year, probably back in January. And it's been an incredible time to not only work at one of the bars that I played and loved, like off the bat. Like one of the first shows I ever saw at the Lost Well was like Mountain of Smoke, and then a bunch of local bands, Old and Ill, and it was just, it blew my mind that such a cool heavy metal bar existed. And
Awesome.
I have been in love with the Lost Well ever since. And I got this job so fitting of my lifestyle of wanting to work in this heavy metal community and to help me build my community as well, you know, and my friends and my fans, and just immerse myself more. And that's really the only reason I left farming, was to kind of come back into this. And then I work at this other bar I was kind of explaining earlier, the Hole in the Wall, which again has been graced by just so many incredible artists since '74, man. I mean, like Bob Dylan's played there. It's a wonderful ancient establishment in Austin, and it doesn't really have a theme, but it can do anything. Like we're doing a Unholy Sunday this Sunday. And then normally on Sunday we have this jazz musician, Candler Wilkinson, and he plays with an incredible set with an upright bassist, and sometimes my friend Adrian from Cortege. And it's just a cool place, you know. They have honky tonk. We had a noise show with, I think it was Many Blessings and a bunch of other bands, and it was incredible how much diversity you can fit into one building. We have 3 stages technically, with a karaoke bar in the back and 2 stages up front, and 3 bars. It's a wonderful place to be a creative. And
Sounds
for me
amazing.
to put myself in these 2 bars that are so similar but also very different, and to help build this community of music, is just something that I've wanted to do for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And I do miss farming, honestly. Of all the jobs, I do miss, especially now, and with depression and coming out of South by, there's been a lot of moments where I'm like, why am I doing this bartending life? I could be back out in the sun. I could be growing things. I could be, learning. And I think in a way, I mean, I am learning. It's just in a different field. And I think that it's totally fine to take myself back. And I have my entire life to do farming. And it's just this moment in time where I need to build these communities and make these connections in music, and to love the life. And I couldn't be more thankful in that way. And I think that I forget that a lot of times in depression. I definitely have forgotten that a lot. And how fortunate that I am to be in Austin and to be part of the Austin heavy metal scene. And like, it's crazy. It's crazy how when it becomes so normal, we're just so blind to the majesty of being a part of something so incredible, and something that's probably never going to happen again. Like, this time is going to happen, just like any other music scene. It's going to happen, it's going to occur, and it's going to be consumed by another music scene or whatever, the younger generation. I already see it. There's this cool band, Die Spitz. These girls are phenomenal, but they're all like the 21 younger generation, and they're kind of doing, like, I think it's more like a whole Mudhoney kind of thing, and it's fucking rad. They ripped it. They played a show at Hole in the Wall, and those girls are such badasses. Like, impressive amount of talent and energy, and like, they bring the kids, and the kids come out and party, and they don't tip very well because they're young and they don't know, but it's it's still cool to see these new groups coming into scenes and growing. And it's always going to be something within a new generation where it's cool to see them utilizing these spaces, and helping grow their communities, and that being a part of that in whatever sense of the word it would be, as like someone who's not completely involved in those communities, but is very impressed by the camaraderie.
Yeah.
It's something that I've always been thankful for. within our own music scene, and it's wonderful to see it happening in other music scenes.
Yeah, man. I think that's a big part of it, is getting back into what is life about for me at its barest, at its most essential. Like, what do I really value in life? And giving that priority. It doesn't mean it always gets top priority, but because there are necessities in life too that we don't enjoy, that we don't necessarily put high value on, but they're necessities, right? But if you value something, you're going to prioritize it. For me, it was getting back to playing the piano again. And that was something I was just so stubborn about. I was like, unless I check those, 6,000 emails that have piled up during my time of depression, I can't play that piano. And then a day would go by, I wouldn't check the email and I wouldn't play the piano, and I felt I guilt tripped myself about it. Like, I psyched myself out about doing something that was valued to me, but that didn't have marked utility in the way that our society values. No one else is. I'm not playing for anyone else. I'm not live streaming it. I'm not selling tickets to it. I'm not doing it for deliberate therapy reasons. I'm playing for my enjoyment. Of course, it has a lot of wonderful benefits, but things like that tend to get devalued because they're not as tangible. And yet they have such a tangible impact on the human spirit, mind, body, soul. I mean, you got to nurture the musical side of you. That's one of the things that really is distinctive about human beings, is our penchant toward humor and our penchant toward music. We also have a lot of negative qualities. We're very violent and confrontative, and we need that drama that just really feeds something inside of us. But there is a higher form of humanity, and it's not one that's separated from our bodies, but it's one that really looks to the things that make us naturally enjoy life and make it a pleasant experience for everyone around. And it's hard to think about those things when you've had a hard life growing up and you're used to things being constantly shit. And you find yourself in that place of stability all of a sudden, where you can make your life a little bit better. And that's what we were feeling at the beginning of 2022, is like, yeah, well, this virus may go on, maybe it'll go away, maybe it won't. Positive that it will, at that point. But I'm going to make my life I'm going to enjoy what I can in my life.
Absolutely.
I'm going to carve out my piece of happiness in the world, that's destined to be destroyed by an asteroid or a volcanic eruption, or just me dying, because life is short. So instead of, I put less investment in me trying to be a part of online movements, things that sucked up a lot of my mental energy. And I put more investment in my personal learning and my well-being, and in my values. And so everyone has to confront, like, at a bare level, who am I as a human being? And what does it mean to be alive? And you separate that from the requirements other people put on you and say, for me, what does it mean to be alive? And if you don't have a vision of that, it would be daydream about, what you'd like that to be. And but we need something we can rise to. And I don't think it should always be another person's example, but I think other people can inspire us. So allow yourself to be inspired by others. Allow yourself to imagine the possibilities. Allow yourself to say, why not? Count the cost, but allow yourself to dream. And allow yourself to rise to that better self. It's an incremental process. It's step by step. Very few things in life happen instantaneously. And as somebody who's a part of a have it now world, stream it now, drive through world, that was very hard for me to get used to and to just contemplate. But I started to see benefits from my walking after 2-3 days. I developed more capacity. I started to feel better. Sitting out in the sun 2 or 3 days, I started to feel more like doing things, drinking more water. I still have my diet Pepsi. I'm working on that. But, mixing in more water, and I started to see benefits of that. Okay, I like the taste of water again, and now I'm drinking 75% water, 25% soda, and these things have an effect. And if you've been through it like I did for those 3 months, get sick, go through a period of depression, you can get back to where you were again, and it doesn't take you as long as it took you the first time. You just have to get back into rising to that ideal self, not a perfect self, but a self that has balance, a self that is treating your body and brain with honor, and a self that is willing to experience the better elements of humanity, such as love and social interaction and introspection and a quest for learning, and humor and music. Those are all important elements to your mental health, which is, again, brain health. So we're affected by external things and we're affected by internal things. It's not just up in your head and you can just kind of snap in and out of a mood.
Yeah, that's true.
It's true in some respects, but in other respects, when it comes to real definable long-term depression, it is a process to get back to that place. So I'm really happy to hear that you've moved closer toward that, and being aware of drawbacks is a big part of processing what might the next experience look like. How can I influence the next step? So I respect that totally. It's always kind of a matter of adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of
I
inch
feel
closer and closer to your ideal.
you got it, man. And especially if you've noticed the pattern. I mean, in 33 years of my life, I think I've had time to think about how I feel in these times and in these months, and especially as recently, from like 2015 when Sadie passed away until like now. It's just like life is just, I don't know. There is no, I think it's all chaos, man. I mean, I have
Oh, it
chaos.
really is. Yeah. We're just making adjustments and trying to shield ourselves from as much as the chaos.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting if you think of life just from a purely physical standpoint. You strip away all the other ways of analyzing. You just think of like objects in motion and cause and effect. And it makes sense for us to connect with more people who are going to bring a better cause and effect into our lives, and to distance ourselves from people who aren't. But there's always going to be the chaos that we can't control.
Totally. Because you can want something so bad and it doesn't matter. It's just chaos, man.
Right.
You got to let people live their lives, and you got to live your life. And it's just like, as you come into the universe, you try to take things from people that you find beautiful, whether it be like personality or their energy or whatever. It's surrounding yourselves with that positive mental attitude and these positive people that you believe are positive in your life. And sometimes people surround themselves with terrible people, but that's your perspective. I always think about that, like people's mental health, it's their mental health. So if there are people that they're putting in their lives around them that are also as destructive as they feel, that might be good for their mental health. That might be putting them on a path of eventual change or contentment or whatever they are feeling in those moments with those people. And it's totally fine.
Yeah.
And at least for my mental health, I have to, around these months, just chill out. And I know that this is coming. It happens every year, and it's again a numerous amount of things at this point, and it just kind of seems to compound, and just with general life burnout. And it's something that I try to strive to be, again, putting myself into that mindset of being my better self. Is just, again, it comes a little easier every time, the more you assess it and realize what's going on around you and the factors that are causing you to do this.
Yeah.
It's this mental health struggle that's always going to be prevalent in your life, but you want to manage that. and
Yeah.
whatever ways you're working that are working for you is something that you just stick on,
Yeah.
D&D, going for walks, playing music, talking to a friend, just take care of yourself as much as you can. And, there's always somebody you can reach out to. I think it's important to remember that, like, we can all find someone to reach out to if the battle with your mental health is getting a little bit too consuming, and people do care. And it is a lot of human connection, even though sometimes we feel like we don't want to have that human connection, and maybe that's the internal struggle that you battle with. But that human connection and the caring and the ability to empathize and help grow someone that's not feeling that 100% or that perfect image of themselves is, important. As we come back to a community too, man, it's like your community should have that as a staple, keeping all of your friends,
Right.
keeping all of these people in your community uh in their image of themselves that they want. It would be a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot you said really resonated with me. One is that all those positive, healthy things that I want in my life, when I'm feeling good, I need to pursue those. I need to really, like, if journaling is something I believe is helpful for me, then while I'm feeling good, I journal, because when I'm feeling bad, I'm in a completely different mental state, and
Certainly.
I can't remember what it was like to feel good. That's what
Right.
people don't realize, who are feeling mentally well and they're trying to help somebody who's depressed. They'll often go straight to solutions. We should try this. Have you tried this? And they're really frustrated when things don't improve or you don't take their advice or something. You don't understand, like, in that state of mind, your brain is shrunk. And another part of your brain is inflamed. Your fear and anxiety is up. Your cognitive will to do things is down, and it's a brain issue at a certain point. I think I'm not an expert on, like, when it becomes a clinical condition. But I do know when there are younger people in our life who are struggling, who express things, you're not always going to know how to perfectly help them. But it does start by listening and
Sure.
empathizing. And that's really the first thing. That's why I turned to music. I don't like to talk to people about my depression, because a lot of times they don't understand, or I feel it's futile, or they want to help me. And it's like, they don't get it. Right. So music was the thing that I would turn to, because it could empathize so exactly with my emotions, both tonally and lyrically. And since then, I still have a hard time reaching out to people. Like, I'm not the type of person that would call a suicide hotline, because I just have too much stubbornness within me. But I'm talking with you right now, right? So there's a part of me that recognizes when I'm feeling good,
Mhm.
then I rise to that, and it becomes more and more of a norm in my life. Every element of change takes time, and it takes repetition, and it takes emotional investment. So when I'm feeling good, like, I want to really put myself into that. I want to spend more time with my community. I want to live a different type of lifestyle when I'm feeling good, because when those dips happen, whatever you want to think about it, it's like the brain's just been sucker punched and bruised. You're going to be down and out for a little while. So the people around you, it helps to educate them on what this is and what
Totally.
these patterns mean. And the people who are close to you, here's how you can help me during this time. And helping them to respect it as more than just an issue of lack of motivation or lack of will. I think it's pretty easy to kind of suss that out after a conversation or two, whether it's that or it's really something that is an all-encompassing physical phenomenon. And so, educating people about that and letting them know, here's how I can best be helped, I think is one of the kind things that we can do when we're feeling good, and
Mhm.
we're like, okay, I don't want to be naive and think this is going to last forever. If this is an ongoing issue,
Right.
it could go away entirely. It may return. and it may be triggered by something that's beyond my control, and my body may just, because of other similar circumstances with the same reactions, may have that exact same reaction again. And that reaction may involve shock and fear and sorrow and grief. And then processing that and trying to get your brain back together can be a long-term process. So it's important to be realistic about what this is, and for you to attack it from that standpoint, and not continually just try to look at it as, I just got to trick my brain into feeling better. There's a recovery process that has to take place, and it involves getting back to those basics of a regular sleep cycle.
Yes. Oh,
Walking in the morning if you can, more water, and more natural foods in your diet, more variety in your diet. So I'm not a health guru by any means. Like, I still have trouble with it, and I still opt for things like frozen foods, so, but I get the best damn frozen foods there are, and I've found a good line that does all kinds of good shit. And so it keeps me fuller longer. It gives me more variety.
yes.
I'm eating a little bit spicier things too, with different kind of
Nice.
spices in it. I'm finding that actually helps even my mental health a little bit more too.
Yeah, spice life.
So, because I was always like avoiding spices, right? Because it wasn't something I was kind of raised with. I was kind of a plain white bread American, I guess. Until we moved to Texas and I got exposed to it. I was like, oh, this is too hot for my tongue. And I just never
Yeah.
got over that childhood phobia, but I've been easing back into it. And, paprika, turmeric, all these things, pepper, even. never used pepper. It was always salt. And yet when I use those things, I feel better. I don't go to the extreme of like those super, killer hot sauces. I'm talking about like the principle of moderation in your life, moderation, balance, spreading it out, making things even. Things aren't going to be perfectly even, but you always go back, you bounce back, because we're capable as humans of stretching in a lot of different directions, even negative ones, but we can get back. But after you've been depressed for a while, you may forget what your normal is. And so somehow you've got to, when you're feeling better, vision that out, start picturing that, write it down. I'm finding even I'm drawn more to do like physical writing, because everything's keyboard for me. And I'm feeling like I always process things in school. I was a preacher's kid. My dad taught me how to take notes so I wouldn't be bored during his sermons. It helped me to process things and to think of other thoughts. And I don't get the same experience when I'm typing. So I'm thinking I really need to return to drawing again and doodling and some of those things that I kind of quote unquote outgrew when I became, college educated and a professional. You just adapt to whatever the currency of the time is, and it happens to be computers right now. And it's harder and harder to find a pen around my house. So, some of that is the next thing I want to change. I want to get back to drawing. I used to draw quite a bit when I was a teenager, and then stopped, for some reason. And I think it's because I got busy with school and work, and then the whole new reality of adult life confronted me, and I left some of these things behind that were really meaningful to me at one time, and that still helped me to process life. So figure out what that is for you and go with it.
Yeah, that's fair, man. You have to have something to strive for, or maybe, I mean, there's a lot of contentment in the world, but I always believe it's like there's always an opportunity to learn and to grow, and in life it's always going to be something that you can make it so beautiful and so fulfilling just as easily as you can make it so abysmally just devoid of anything. And you have maybe not equal opportunities in that, especially when it comes to mental health and things you've experienced in life. But there's got to be that point where when you're at your lowest, and I've felt it in my life, you know, when I was a fucking shitty little kid with no direction, you know, and eventually just like stopped doing drugs and joined the military. It's like there was a point where I was like, my life sucks. My life is like the worst form of my life that I've ever wanted to be. And it's like I'm too fucking young, or maybe have too much fucking perspective on my own life at that point, even. But I did not want to be that person. And I made that little change. And it caused me an incredible amount of mental health and PTSD. You know, looking back, of course, you never know how you're going to pull yourself out of some of the worst situations. And it is always a climb back to that perfect image of self. But even that young, I believed in the perfect image and the James that I wanted to be. And I'm still working towards that person, and it's still going to be a struggle. And I, you know, I definitely implore everyone to look at these hardships that they go through and see maybe the future you or the future self that could come from it. You know, and it's good and bad, man. You know, I have PTSD from the military, but I also believe that it helped me structurally,
Yeah, same.
just as much as it didn't. You know, like there's times, again, you were saying like, I forget what we were talking about earlier, but you had just mentioned like disassociating, and just, yeah, that I feel that so hard sometimes. Just like sometimes when I don't even want to disassociate, I will just, and I know it's a lot of PTSD from the military, and just
Yeah,
having to, you know, being in a shitty situation and being like, the only way out is if I just completely don't think of anything right now. And
yeah,
I'm just existing in those moments, in those like 15-minute rides or whatever you're doing. Like,
yeah.
fuck that.
Imagination bubbles. You know, it's like I'll find myself, I can't help my mind from wandering. It's been that way since I was a kid. Like I'm a chronic
Yeah,
daydreamer, and it's
yeah,
been
me
my way
too.
of escape, and also a form of dissociation during really stressful moments. Like when I'm in a dentist chair, I have to kind of like put my mind, I have to close my eyes and just like, you know, establish what kind of state do I want to be in. Um and if you know, I'm listening to music or something, some dentists don't allow that, which sucks.
That's
Because
awful.
of the phone cords, you know, getting in the way. But I guess
Oh
it
yeah,
doesn't, that doesn't bother you if you got the wireless, but I'm not
yeah,
quite that fancy yet.
yeah,
So yeah, but like when I'm in the dentist chair, I have some of the most serene therapeutic moments in one of the in a an atmosphere that gives my body absolute terror,
yeah,
um, because of my ability to disassociate and to daydream.
yes,
It's a trip, man. I'll tell you one thing though. Like you, I had positive, negative experiences in the military, but I'll tell you one thing that has stood with me as a sensible strategy for making it through um, a bad day. And that is a slogan I saw in one of the lecture halls in Fort Benning, Georgia. And we were all being smoked. You know, we were having to do push ups. And there was this really gnarly drill sergeant named Drill Sergeant Lassiter. Just his name just sounds punishing, right? He was so scary. Like, he didn't even seem human. He just seemed like, you know, fused with whatever animal the army was
yeah,
in its native form. And I remember there, as I was trying to hold my, you know, because he got you like doing pushes, but he got you like holding.
yeah,
And,
totally.
and if you touch the ground, everybody's got to do 10 more,
Yeah,
you know, so you're all trying to
yeah,
like, there was a slogan I glanced over and it just said, play the game, play the game. And, you know, I was thinking that could work as kind of a life philosophy, especially if you're a nihilistic person like I am, meaning that you
absolutely.
don't have a lot of hope for humanity. It can get you through a lot of things. Like I've been in situations where I felt absolutely like I don't belong here. This is not where I want to be, you know, but I have to be there for family reasons, or, you know, maybe in the company of people I don't particularly like, or, you know, maybe in an environment that is really awkward to me, or maybe doing something activity wise that is unpleasant or stressful. Like even going grocery shopping is like a pain in the neck
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
sometimes. And that slogan, play the game, kind of puts me in, it gives me permission to just relax, regardless of where I want to be, regardless of
I
what
love
I
that.
wish was true about the circumstances, regardless of how inconvenienced I am by this person or whatever. I'm going to live in this moment and experience this moment authentically as a human being and as an observer. Like, I think that's one of the big things human beings are. If you want to get mystical about it, Mother Earth or God or whatever made us observers, or that's how we've become evolutionarily, however you want to look at it. We observe things, we synthesize information, we draw conclusions, and that's really the magic of our species, why we're able to do all the things we do. So use that natural observational self, and just in that moment, I'm going to play the game. I'm just observing, just seeing this happen. I'm watching this, be in that moment. It's very hard to do, but I'll
It
tell you
is.
what, I had success with it, and I had to have success with it because I had oral surgery last week, and they didn't allow earbuds,
Mhm.
and all they had was the shitty like elevator music to listen to, and every once in a while, there was a pop song that I hated,
Right.
and somehow I was able to just kind of like escape into the moment and just say, I'm in this moment. This is this experience, I'm in the 21st century getting my teeth drilled on. How many people in the past or the future will have a different experience and wonder what it was like to be, in this situation. I get to experience this piece of life, this piece of history. This is something I can use in an article later on. This is something I can write about. There's utility to this. There's value to this in so many ways. When you start kind of easing in, leaning in, they say, into the moment, you start to be able to say, I can kind of feel at home wherever I am, around whoever I'm around. It doesn't mean I have to compromise my values or my beliefs or pretend to be something I'm not. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting just like allowing yourself to relax and be in that moment, to be present for it.
Being present is one of the most important things. And I'm not going to tangent about how I do feel that messaging is living in the past.
Mm.
I think that the necessity to be present is so important, because there's so many experiences in life that I mean, we all go through where you're like sitting in a room with some of the people that you probably haven't seen in years, or you see them every day or whatever, but we're all disconnected in that moment, and we're all like off in our little internet worlds and like on our phones, or like talking to someone else that isn't there, or like it's just wild. It's really wild how disconnected we are in the moments that we live day by day, when we aren't even present for them. And we wait and we wonder why like we feel such a disconnect, and I do believe that while messaging is still a form of communication, it's also very soulless communication. And I don't think that I think that while messages can be positive and you can still feel a lot from it, it's just, it detracts from the moments that you're in that very second a lot of times. Because I mean, I try to do most of my I try to do most of my messaging on the toilet. I think it's a healthy way to do things. Getting the
I-
shit out, just get the shit out and be
yeah.
done with it. And then I put my phone on silent and I'm running around working all
Yeah.
day or
I've turned
whatever.
off my notifications. I have to like proactively look to see if I have messages.
Yeah.
And that's been good for me because I don't have any relationships, family wise, friendship wise, where the expectation is we're going to be answering each other's messages right away. I've had people
Right.
kind of get mad I didn't, respond to them within that 8 hours that I wasn't paying attention, and send multiple messages, as if they're going to like jolt me or wake me up
Yes.
for,
Yep.
but I just keep rolling with who I am. I don't need to get in an argument with it. I don't even have to explain it. But at some point, for the people that are important to me, I'll tell them, look, I don't, if we establish some kind of rapport where we need to talk more, or there's a circumstantial issue or something that's going to require us to have multiple back and forth, I'll tell them. Or one of my clients, I'll tell them, these are the best times to get me. I won't go into a lot of the explanation stuff, but I'll just be very realistic. These are the windows that are best to get to me. This is the realistic time frame. Give a schedule of when what's expected of you, so they know what to expect of you. Don't leave it to mystery or chance. I think that's the biggest thing, is just, it's hard to maintain regularity when you're depressed. It's hard to be consistent when you're depressed.
Yes.
And I completely empathize with that. And I don't fault people for needing to take time away. The hardest thing, though, is feeling like you have to slog through it nobly and not take time for yourself, and not, again, you don't have to tell everybody the whole story. I don't think people need to be as in each other's business as they are today, but
Yeah.
you can tell them, here's when I'll get it to you, right? There's been issues, there's been complications. Here's when I will able to realistically get it to you. And then you better meet that deadline, right? And then in the
Right.
future, build in the time that you need if you see patterns, or accept projects during times of the year where you're going to be more fruitful. So for me, I'm just entering the busy season at Doomed and Stone. It's been busy all winter, but for me creatively, this is the time when I write my long reviews and do real cool projects. And I'm inspired. The sun is out, longer days. There's just seasonal effects that are very powerful upon me. So I have to be very careful what I commit to at the end of summer when days start to get darker. I'm not going to be at the same capacity that I was before. And so,
Right.
however I set expectations with various people in my life, it's important for me to do that ahead of, depression. So at least, you've got that built-in time if you need longer to get things to people. And if you get it sooner when you're feeling good, even better, they're even happier. But the worst is to kind of hold yourself to a different standard when you're going to be going through a period of probable depression.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we probably advised out people, but I think a lot of this is just us being able to talk with each other, and obviously, find your own path. If you're listening or watching this, but do think deeply about it, and don't necessarily accept that it has to be the dominant force in your life. It may be recurring, it may be a condition that flares up every once in a while, but you can have a strategy for it. And there is hope, there is relative hope. I wish I was as up and as happy and as whatever other people are at certain times in their life, but no one is immune from depression. It can affect everybody, and it may affect you temporarily, or it may stick around for a while. But do think deeply about it and find your way.
Agreed, man. I mean, heal on your time, and make sure that you nurture your own mental health as much as you can. At the end of the day, it is truly your mental health. It's not anyone else's to try to have a solution for you. And you'll find that solution, and you'll find your happiness. And it may not be as clear as you would hope it, but it's going to happen if you put the love and the heart into healing yourself as you can. And it might take years. Again, nothing happens overnight. You might fester in depression for a bit, but you'll get out of it, and you can trust that everybody understands, and it's something we all struggle with, and we can always connect on. And I'm always eternally thankful for these conversations, because it reminds me of that, and of the human connection, and that we're all struggling, no matter what we do, with a little bit of depression or anxiety or whatnot, whatever you want to categorize as these feelings of self-doubt, coming down to it. But at the end of the day, you're your own worst enemy, and you can pull yourself out from that depression just as much as you can sink into it. And it will happen as long as you believe in yourself.
Amen to that. James, thank you for being on the program.
Thank you,
And
Billy.
if you guys want to check out how to get a hold of Monte Luna or Doomed in Stone, I will leave our respective links in the description. But why don't we give it a shout out for those who are listening? How about for you? Anything you want to plug?
We're playing a show this Sunday, April 10th. I don't know when this will air, but with a dear friend's Dust Lord from Tulsa, and we've got some local bands, Throat Piss and Phase 4, joining us. It's going to be a great time. It's a free metal show. We just got a write-up actually about the show from the Austin Chronicle.
Oh, very cool.
So yeah, I was really stoked about it. The artwork that my drummer drew for it is really beautiful. And then we've got a show in April, the 21st, and it's like a comedy show. So we're going to be accompanying this group called the Inferno Room at this local venue called Kick Butt Coffee. And they're going to be doing about like 8 comedians, and then we're going to be playing a set after them. And that's pretty fun. I'm really excited. I've never done like a music comedy show. We're going to go run out to Georgia in June, which this might be relevant to, but old Marcus from Shade Beast is having a birthday, and we're going to roll out to Athens and play one of the dates for those dudes, I think alongside Husk and another band I cannot remember at this time, but it should be fun. And then we're playing Atlanta and New Orleans. I believe that date range would be New Orleans would be the 10th. The 11th is Atlanta at the Catacombs. And then I believe it's the 12th would be Athens. But I could also be wrong because I'm terrible at calendars.
Me too.
So
I was just thinking,
yeah. Range. 10, 11, 12,
yeah.
or 9, 10, 11, 12. Something like that's gonna happen. You look out the universe for Monte Luna in June, and then we're gonna try to do some stuff in August, maybe an East Coast tour, meet up with our friends the Venus Twins up in New York. And then October, we're still in the process of talking with the Temptress Girls about finishing our tour with them. And that would take us to the West Coast, which would be cool because maybe we can meet in person, Billy.
That would be awesome. Yes.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, as far as keep me in touch about that, or keep in touch with me about that rather. Yeah, I was just thinking about Doomed and Stone, what we're doing this year, and we're definitely doing an Ohio Doomed and Stone Fest this summer, mid to late June, I believe, and then we're doing a Doomed and Stone Wisconsin Fest in early November. So I'm probably going to fly out for both of those. And I'm really, really looking forward to it. I think that's important, is to have things to look forward to, even if they're small things, like, having something in front of you that you can anticipate that gives some sense of pleasure is helpful for healing. Check out our reviews and interviews and podcasts at doomedandstone.com. And if you like Doomed and Stone and want to get a t-shirt, we have t-shirts available, and they're shipping worldwide. And I'm super excited because we got all 3 of our designs on sale, which we've never had at the same time. And we have our first ever hoodie, and you can find that at doomedandstone.bandcamp.com/merch, doomedandstone.bandcamp.com. And you can also get our free compilations there. We have about over 40 of them now. I think maybe closing in on 50 different compilations of heavy music scenes around the world. And they're kind of a nice way to document what's been happening over the past decade and some change in the heavy underground. Well, James, thanks for being on the show. Appreciate you, man.
You know it, Billy. This has been awesome. I'm excited. Today should be a beautiful day.
Oh, hell yeah.
It takes me. It's gorgeous out right now. I think I can see through this small slat of window. And I hope it's a beautiful day for you as well, my friend.
It is. Sun is shining. So it's starting to look up and back to that positivity we started with at the first of the year.
Yes. Keep it going. Number 1, positivity.
Amen. All right, man. We'll talk soon. Doom on you guys until we meet again.